Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our Climbers Data Qlik Cloud Migration webinar. We're just going to give people a couple more minutes to arrive. I can see people still arriving in the attendee panel, so if you could just bear with us a minute or so longer, that'd be great. So I will repeat this in a second, but for those of you that aren't familiar with GoToWebinar, there is a question and answer panel that you should be able to pop out from your right-hand pane. Feel free to ask any questions as we go. We will have a Q&A at the end. And there's also a raise hand button, and we will try and keep our eagle eyes open for that, and unmute you if you would like to ask a question verbally. We do have some technical issues this afternoon, so our colleague Roger's webcam has, despite the planning and the testing we've done this week, is not working. So that's a shame. But his audio is loud and clear, so so we should be fine on that front. Okay. I think the attendee list is settled down a little bit now, so so I think we'll get started. So again, thank you for joining us today. My name's James Sharp. I'm MD here at Climber UK. We're delighted to have you here for the Qlik Cloud Migration webinar, teaching you everything you need to know in terms of a successful migration. We've got a number of speakers with us today. So Roger, if you could advance the slides for us, that'd be great. Before we go to the introductions, just to reiterate, so on the GoToWebinar tools, please get involved. You can raise your hand. Hopefully you see that on the icon there. There's the Q&A panel, so you can ask a question, and we will do our best to answer those during the session, but we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. The session is being recorded, so just please bear that in mind from any privacy perspectives. For anything that you don't want recorded, and if you have any problems during the webinar at all, please email Kat Webster. Her email is on the bottom slide there. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Rog. So introductions, we're really pleased to have Chris Allen, CTO from OnTrack, with us today. Chris has been a Climber customer for a while now and has gone through the journey of migrating fully to Qlik Cloud. So I'm really delighted, and thank you, Chris, for joining us to share some of your experiences in that journey. It's going to be great to hear. Roger. Roger, as I mentioned, his video is not working, but Roger will be here to explain everything there is to know about the planning your successful migration and what you can expect from the Qlik Cloud platform itself. And then Sav Raka, Senior Manager from the Qlik Cloud Professional Services team, is here to explain some of the Qlik tools, the tools that are available to smarten up your migration journey and make sure you're doing the relevant sort of planning, etc., to make that a success. And then our very own Mark James from the data integration side of the organisation to talk to you briefly about the options in terms of connecting to on-prem and SaaS-related data sources once you've made your migration to the cloud. So that's the team. What we'd like to do very quickly, and if I can find the right button, just to do a very quick poll, if I may, for those attendees. So if I just launch this, hopefully you will see the option now to choose what your current analytics solution is. This would just be really useful for us to understand who we have on the call and what they're using currently. So that's really helpful. Huge presence in QlikSense, which is good to see, and some QlikView customers still there, so that's really nice to know too. Okay, thank you for that. Got those. And then we'll do one more poll on whether you're planning to do a migration to Qlik Cloud in the next 6 months. Again, just to give us a guide on your motivation for attending today. Okay, some of you already on the migration path, which is great. So that's really interesting to know. And some of you not planning to do it in the next 6 months. So hopefully this is educational on the platform itself and all those tools that are available to you. So brilliant. Thank you everyone for taking the time to take those polls. That's brilliant. So moving on the agenda very quickly, we're going to go straight to Chris and hear about the success that OnTrack have had in moving to Qlik Cloud. We'll then have Roger go through the Qlik Cloud platform and the strategy and planning on making doing your migration. And then the migration pathway from SAB and the tooling available, particularly from Qlik, and assessing your current environments and how easy that transition is going to be. And then, as I mentioned before, Mark will talk about the data integration and connectivity options for you. Roger's going to run the conclusion at the end and just the summary, and then we'll open up to a Q&A if there are questions at the end. Okay, thank you. So moving on, so on to Chris then. So again, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. Next one, please, Roger. Before we start, would you mind just introducing a little bit about what OnTrack do, who they are as an organisation, please?
So OnTrack are a software development business. We create and maintain our own works management solution. And that is used by teams who are out repairing and maintaining our roads, and particularly performing road reinstatement. Key amongst those is our biggest partner, who is a company called SQS, Stanmore Quality Surfacing, and they use OnTrack extensively in their business. In fact, our works management system, they wouldn't be able to run without it. And it's part of every part of their operation. We manage tens of millions of photographs, millions of jobs, millions of tasks, and very many gangs of workers. And this is all done with the software. Obviously, reporting is a big part of this, and the Qlik platform is what we use for that. And we partner with Climate for that.
Thanks, Chris. That's great. So what was the motivation to move to cloud for OnTrack?
Yeah, so at OnTrack, we've been using QlikView for our reporting needs for many years. Reporting was prepared by a data engineer, and all of our reports were emailed out as spreadsheets using the end printing service. QlikView ran on a single, very large and very hot on-premises server. And that lived in our server room at our head office. This was convenient because it was connected directly to our intranet, and it's kind of what you did in those days. You had a steaming server in the server room, and it did everything for you. But it obviously required lots of maintenance, and it was, if we needed to upgrade or make any changes, it would mean that there'd be downtime for everybody. And really the big trigger for this, as for many changes in business, was when COVID happened in 2020. And one of the big outcomes of this was that we moved out of our London office, and staff started to work in a more hybrid way, and they were working from home. And our server room moved up to one of our depots. The Qlik server went there, but it wasn't the best environment for it. Because you needed multiple electricity supplies, better comm supplies, and all that sort of thing. So we started looking for other alternatives. We talked to Climate about this with our in-house team, and they recommended their MQS Cloud. Thought it would be a very good fit for us. So that was really the trigger. And after that, we then started our migration journey.
Brilliant, thanks, Chris. And yeah, I remember the move to MQS. Roger, we see your emails there. With the MQS move, because that gave you the ability, didn't it, to keep QlikView running? I think in the short term, and the imprinting reports, which aren't compatible with Qlik Cloud. So I guess that was just a strategic stepping stone for you.
Yeah, it was a bit, and it was the right thing to do at the time. I mean, with a smaller team and remote working, we needed a solution that would let us use QlikView without worrying about the associated infrastructure. So we still had QlikView, but we didn't want to be taking backups, checking connectivity, running firewalls, installing licenses, scaling servers, backing up electricity, everything like that.
Yeah.
And what we found that was QS did all of this for us. And with Clima's help, it was extremely straightforward getting there. We also took the opportunity to upgrade to the latest version of QlikView, as we were a few versions behind, and this was available in MQS, along with a clever migration license that Qlik provided for us. Yeah,
very good. Yeah, the dual use license. That's right. And imprinting was obviously a big part of your solution back in the day, where you were emailing reports out, I think, on a daily basis to the teams. And how do you manage now that you don't have imprinting available?
Yeah, so again, it was a sign of the times. I mean, back in those days, and again until recently, a report was something that you received by email each day, or each week, or each month. There wasn't really any precedent for doing anything different, and we sent out several thousand reports every morning and every day to staff and managers across the business. Many were useful, some were not, some were old ones that they didn't want anymore. And obviously reading them involved loading and interpreting a spreadsheet. Managing was difficult, and old reports were rarely removed from the list. When we started migration to QlikSense, which didn't easily support imprinting, we thought we were in for a big showstopper, as staff were very clearly wedded to their daily emailed reports. But instead, we were really surprised to find that when we demonstrated QlikSense's interactive reporting to managers, they loved it. And we're actually happy to come back to us and say, yeah, no, we're happy to migrate. We don't need the email reports anymore. And it's a very big step with them. But we managed the transition to tailored QlikSense dashboards served directly from Qlik Cloud. And actually now we don't use imprinting at all anymore, and haven't looked back. I know that QlikSense has been introducing some ability to email reports. We are actually looking back at that, but it's, the company are now quite wedded to the dashboards, and they really like them. So it's been a huge positive step.
That sounds really good. Moving from the old to the new. Brilliant. Finally, Chris, is there anything you would share in terms of your experience for the attendees today on your journey?
Yeah, it's been interesting actually. It's very easy for you to get into a mindset where you believe the solution is only good if you build it or manage it yourselves. You want your own servers, your own server room, your own infrastructure management, and so on. But actually building reporting infrastructure isn't our core business. Our core business is works management, and road reinstatement is SQS's core business, and we work with them closely. So allowing Qlik and Clima to manage our reporting infrastructure has freed up our own resources, and it's removed worries about scalability, security, and so on. And it's allowed us to concentrate on what we do best. And the support we've received from both Qlik and Clima have been excellent along the way. So yeah, it's been very good for us.
That's great. I'm really pleased to hear that, Chris. So thank you for those positive comments. That's grand. And thank you for joining us today and your time. We will move swiftly on now to Roger and to the overview of the Qlik Cloud platform. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thanks again, Chris and James, for handing that over. Sorry you can't see me. I'm sure you're not missing much. Yeah, so let me just talk you through the platform just to make sure we're on a similar page. So no doubt you've all seen this sort of overview of the architecture as it's called, the organizational structure of the Qlik Cloud platform. So just starting from the bottom, you've got a range of deployment options of deploying Qlik Sense and into different environments, as well as you've got alternative ways of connecting to data through cloud connections into those different source, the cloud platforms at the bottom. And yeah, that universal connectivity absolutely is true for both the on-prem and Qlik Cloud capabilities. And where it starts to separate out a little bit from Qlik Sense is the fundamental services, or the foundational services, I should say, that's been built up into Qlik Cloud. Some are represented in the on-premise version and some are not. The key ones that are not are the reporting and some of the developer APIs. Whether they will head towards the on-prem at some point in the future, it's unclear at the moment, but you've got a set of foundation services to pull everything together. And really the topic for this session is around the right-hand side at the top, which is the analytics function. So this is the user-based functions that make use of those underlying services underneath. And first of all, I just want to bring you to the visualization and dashboard. So anybody that's used to Qlik Sense and also Qlik View will be well aware of the associative engine, the power of grey, the green, white, and grey color scheme of selecting data, and that ability to drill down and explore the data and see what's missing. That's well and truly there in Qlik Cloud. Where it starts to extend is with augmented analytics. Now, some of this is on-premise as well as being in the cloud. Maybe chargeable in terms of AutoML connectivity, but certainly within Qlik Cloud, you've got a limited, but you do have the capability of connecting as part of the basic subscription to AutoML functionalities and start looking at machine learning, converting your data into some form of future prediction. But over and above that, you've got this augmented analytics, which the Insight Advisor is the new, well, no, it's new now, it's been around for about a year. It's the sort of feature that really is starting to make Qlik Sense a self-service tool. It provides the guidance to somebody who's perhaps more of a data analyst than a data developer, and they can start exploring the data in native, in English, and Qlik will identify appropriate charts to present that question that's trying to be asked. So I think as that augmented analytics is a great feature for helping people to progress on and start creating more dashboards rather than it becoming an IT operation and strap for resources. An area I think I've had conversations with Chris and the developer that works for Chris is a great opportunity to embed the analytics. At the moment, Chris was explaining that users are being taken to Qlik Cloud and that is working exceptionally well. There's no reason why those charts can't be embedded into a web application, and certainly as OnTrack is a software house in its own right, that they could take that capability and represent whole applications or individual sheets or individual charts and present them into their own software package, and it would have all the same cutting and slicing and drilling down capabilities that you have directly from Qlik Cloud. So I think that's an exciting area. I think that's going to evolve over time, where no longer are you going to a separate analytics platform, it's just analytics brought to the user in their normal workspace. Alerting and action is, again, another key driver going forward, which is about, rather than having passive analytics as we've traditionally been used to, that sort of going to a website, looking at charts and tables and making decisions based on the analysis you're doing at the time. There's the capability of triggering alerts. So when something, a sales value in a particular month drops below an acceptable threshold, that triggers alert to the sales team to go and start investigating, and it could give them a hyperlink to go and open up the Qlik app at the relevant page, and so they can start exploring what has gone wrong. Not only is it useful around the analytical type data, but it's also actually being used within the dev operation roles, where if there is a problem with one of the apps, then you can get alerts being triggered and enable somebody to understand what has happened and deal with that issue before customers, the users of the app, start identifying the problems. So you can deal with problems immediately rather than at the point when you start looking at the apps. So certainly alerting is a key feature going forward. Again, that will be chargeable on premise. In Qlik Cloud, that's free. That's all part of the package. Another exciting area is application automation. This is where you can do systems integration at a analytical level. We've been used to integrating at a data level, so bringing data up from databases and combining that data and transforming that data. This provides the capability of taking the output and triggering some other activity in another system. As I was saying about alerting and recognizing an issue, and having that go into ServiceNow and create a service ticket. You could monitor and have sort of recovery actions on reload processes, and you may have a rollback and retry process which would automatically recover from some disconnection that may have occurred during the reload process. You can track those as warning messages, so you can see the trends in those and start dealing with trying to understand if they keep occurring, what is happen with those, and address those issues before they become an issue into the user base. Application automations, I see as a bridge between the two. There ought to be a layer between analytics and data integration. In this drawing, it's seen as part of data integration. I think it really is a barrier between, a bridge between the two. And in Mark, in his section, he would talk a bit more about data integration. He would just scratch the surface of it in the short time he's got in this session. And we'll talk about another session he's got coming up, which will go into that in a great more detail. So that's the fundamental services. In terms of any form of cloud system, you've got to make sure that it's secure. When you have your own on-premise systems, all the security, all the physical security, the network security, the people in security built around it is all under your control. And of course, with a cloud system, it's not. So you want to make sure that the cloud provider is got the appropriate levels of security in place, and this is a range of badges that Qlik have achieved in terms of demonstrating their trust and reliability around security. So you've got the ISO standards around management systems, as well as the SOC standards around systems and an organization. There's some which are US orientated, like State RAMP and Texas RAMP. These are government-based solutions, but again, it demonstrates Qlik's commitment to making sure that the whole system is secure and your data is safe within it. So really getting down to the planning, really before you even start planning, is to come up with your strategy. Why are you wanting to migrate? All too often people think, cloud's a thing, and let's go and do some cloud. Let's go and migrate to the cloud as a reason, and it's not a reason. It's a means to an end, and what you need to do is really understand what those ends are. And strategy is about thinking through a set of scenarios and working out which is the best scenario for your organization. It will be different from each organization, and establishing what are those goals that you want to achieve, and then start planning to those goals. If your total cost of ownership is one of your primary goals, then really understand what your current cost of ownership is, and then understand how cloud could affect that, and then measure that improvement as you roll out more into the cloud. So the planning aspect is really is about the how. Really the strategy should be about the why. Why you want to do something. Make sure you clearly understand what it is, because there may be some organizational changes that need to go with it. Again, as Chris described, I think dare I say, more through not through accident, but through driving the user base into accepting going to Qlik Cloud directly, they've actually significantly improved their user experience. To try, I think planning for that up front could be a challenge, but sort of having that clear strategy and then driving them in that direction is actually help them understand and improve how they can better get to their reports rather than wait for an email to drop at some point in the week. So yeah, planning is really just the delivery. It's about really want to think through the strategy. And if your strategy is around improving reporting, as we've already heard from Chris about imprinting not being available from Qlik Cloud. So if you need to have those static reports, you either eliminate the need or consider changing to reporting services. And recently released is tabular reporting, which enables an Excel spreadsheet to act as a template, and if you've got growing rows, you don't need to worry about the length of the table. It would just expand to the rows that are available. So all those sort of capabilities are embedded in Qlik Cloud, which is not available in Qlik Sense or Qlik View directly. If you need sort of more fine-grained reporting, some more the imprinting type functionality of being able to take elements of reports and combine them together. There are third-party tools. The one we use or promote ourselves is Mailing Deploy. That's a very good tool. And the key thing to that is it works with third-party visualizations. So at the moment, I believe it's in the pipeline to be addressed by Qlik that reporting services and tablet reporting will not render third-party visualizations at this stage. Hopefully that will get addressed at some point in the future, but right now it's not supported. So if you do need static reporting, then either you need to eliminate those third-party visualizations, or you need to adopt Mailing Deploy type third-party tools. But the range of graphics you can get on the right-hand side is an example of a typical report that can be generated. It's an A4 landscape formatted screenshot in effect. And the good thing about it is that was a filtered set of data. So from one report, you can then create a stream of reports for different individuals, depending on what categories that individual is needed. So you've got a good set of capabilities within the native Qlik reporting. Large apps, certainly have a look at your environment in terms of the size of apps, and Sav will be taking us through and to give us an overview of the type of tooling that's available with from Qlik and the Migration Center, and to really start reviewing your current environment, establish that baseline of where you are, and to do some tidying up. It's quite often an environment that's existed for a period of time. If it's not been governed too tightly, we'll have apps that are stale, we'll have data that's not used, and may not be written in a way that's appropriate. In terms of app size and reducing app size, there is a limit of 5 GB, which is actually quite a sizable Qlik app. But certainly you can achieve that fairly rapidly if you don't do some basic data modeling best practices, like reducing the cardinality of data. Having lots of timestamps in your data is one of the worst things you can do, because each one of those timestamps to a millisecond is a different bit of data, and they're stored in a zip style format in a compressed manner, and that will increase the memory. So splitting out dates into dates and times into times, or even if you don't need times, dropping times, will significantly reduce the size of those data, of that data, and also number any key fields. Rather than having long text strings, numerics are much lighter to store, and also will perform better in terms of the lookups. You actually get an improvement. But at the end of the day, if you can't get below that 5 GB threshold, you're not stuck. You've got on-demand app generation capability, where you have a template app which has a summary of your data, and then that will launch a underlying app underneath, which will then drill into the detail based on those selections. You're only bringing up the data you needed for that particular query. And lastly, you got the ability to increase the capacity, change the subscription model, so you actually can store larger apps into your tenant. So, you know, the larger apps can be dealt with, but ideally what you want to do is to make sure they're as optimal to start with before looking at alternative pricing or alternative engineering. The other thing to consider is if you want to change to a capacity pricing model. So this is where Qlik will, you know, Qlik is licensed by the volume of data you're analyzing, and the that opens up opportunities where you can have unlimited users or basic users. So you've got this trade-off between the number of users that becomes unlimited with capacity modeling against the amount of data you're going to be analyzing. Whereas with a user price model, it's directly related to the number of users. So you know, as part of your strategy, you know, certainly look at the pricing model and determine what is the most appropriate for your business. You know, if you are a business that really wants to push out Qlik across the whole organization, capacity pricing must be something you should consider as a starting point, and then really look at making sure your apps are optimal, and also you make good use of some data strategies. You know, store your data in spaces, don't store it on a in a database, because you'll end up with data movement costs and bringing that data in and out of Qlik Cloud. So you know, do consider all those different scenarios. So I'll hand over to Sav now. So Sav will talk you a bit more detail around the tooling and the capabilities of that Qlik provide.
Thank you, Rog. Thank you. Okay, we go to the next slide. Excellent. So I'll just preface this with, well, firstly, I'll just kind of overview of what I'm going to present. So we'll talk through the migration pathway and the typical flow of activities, the sequencing that you would need to kind of follow, and then touch on some of the tools and the useful resources, along with some key takeaways that you can take away from this session. So to start off with the kind of typical flow and journey, it's important to kind of state that, you know, no two, what we say, client managed or your on-prem QlikSense enterprise deployments are the same. And no two migrations will therefore be the same. You know, there's different processes and procedures, each nuanced with each kind of environment. And that's why you start off with an assessment, and that's why it's so important to kind of understand and take a picture of your QlikSense, or so be it QlikView environment, and inventory that estate. Understand how many applications you have, what the usage is like, what the size is of the application, and also kind of the reloads and a bit more into the detail on what's included inside of those applications as well. One of the big things is obviously third-party extensions. You might want to, you know, figure out how many are in use across your application set, along with, you know, data connections and your dependencies that are also loaded into each of the applications. And that will all be kind of assessed to help understand, you know, which applications are prime fit, ready to go to cloud, which ones will need a bit of TLC, a bit of refactoring, all just to work within the Qlik Cloud thresholds and guardrails that we have in the Qlik Cloud platform. And that's not to say that, you know, you can't migrate. You just need to think about a strategy around those applications, whether it's large app that Roger mentioned before, or redesigning some of those applications just so that they can fit within the guardrails. But we're seeing many customers absolutely possible to work within those guardrails, migrate across, and get the best out of Qlik Cloud. So once you've done your assessment, we'll talk about tools in the next slide. There's a lot more that you can do around preparing the cloud tenant. And your cloud tenant is your cloud environment. That's your Qlik Cloud environment that you're paying for, the SaaS environment. And in there, you'd want to configure it, set up what is the identity provider, so your users can access it and authenticate securely. And then kind of define your space structure, right? So that's one of the big differences between what was traditionally QlikSense Client-Managed and Qlik Cloud is there you had streams governing and secure and organizing your applications and your dashboards. And now we have a space structure up in Qlik Cloud. And then you move into migration. So migration itself, think about this as really high level, very, very high level, two kind of layers. You've got the data layer and then your front end user facing apps. You'd want to migrate your ETL across. If you've got the data connectivity, Mark will talk more about what's available from a Qlik perspective in the data integration side. And then the front end user facing apps. So those are essentially, the ones with the dashboard, the pie chart, the visualizations. You want to migrate those across too, and then publish them and make sure that they are all there. Part of the migration is with Qlik Sense in particular, and this is specifically only Qlik Sense, is all of the personal sheets, stories, and bookmarks. So with Qlik Sense, obviously, as a self-service tool, we're able to have users, depending on how you set it up in client-managed, be able to create their own content. And that could be sheets, as I said, stories, or bookmarks. And you essentially want to, as you migrate those front-end user-facing applications, you want the user to see exactly the same view that they saw on-prem. And if they've created a bookmark that they use every day in their application, in their dashboard, once that application's been migrated and all the ETL is behind it and it's reloaded, all the data reloaded inside it, you'd want that bookmark also there. And we'll talk about more of the tools around the specific APIs that we've got inside of Qlik Cloud to be able to, for us to migrate those as well into cloud. Reload schedules, often kind of overlooked, but very important. This is all about business expectation, business as usual, making sure that you can have your analytics in the same timely fashion and manner that you had it on client managed. And then still in the bracket of migrating of applications is optimization. Again, working with those cloud guardrails. This is a bit of a segue into the box on the right here, but optimizing for cloud doesn't have to be to work within the guardrails or thresholds or just even make the app smaller. That's not always necessary. It's not necessary at all. You'd also want to make sure that you can just make use of application automation, create more of a process around it. And again, I'll move into the next box, but we've got alerting and monitoring. There's way more capabilities for reporting services that are being currently have been released and will be released in the future. There's a whole new way of development. There's collaborative development, which will open up the possibilities for your developers to start working on the same application in the script. There's version history in the script as well. And then, of course, machine learning, AutoML, which is a huge value add where you can have that data set be sent over to AutoML and start to build out those models for predictive analytics as well. And just quickly back to automation, so that Roger mentioned it again, systems integration, right? So it's about building more of a business process around your analytics, not just having the dashboard there, but you can then ping a message to teams, a bit more conversational analytics, send it back into the CRM or other systems, and also just manage your environment better. There's things that you can do around user management, license management, all the things that you would want to have done and managed and client managed too. Next slide, Roger. So what tools are available today? Oh, that's gone a bit off center there, or it doesn't matter. But behind that, the little screenshot, the SaaS readiness applications, those are available right now on the Qlik Cloud Migration Center. And I've provided a little bit of a screenshot, and that's all that says behind there is Qlik Cloud Migration Center. These are readiness apps come in basically two forms, one Qlik Sense and one Qlik View. One would be run for the Qlik Sense environment, and again, the other one would be run for your Qlik View environment. And you get basically the same sort of information. You get an inventory of every dashboard and application that is published or available inside of the environment. And typically, you would want to filter that down to just be the excellent. Thanks, Roger. To be the published applications, because that's really what you want to focus on and care about first. And these readiness apps give you that picture, give you that understanding of what's available. The screenshot's small on purpose, but you can kind of see where the breakdown would be, what's to be migrated, what's not to be migrated, what would potentially be retired. This exercise is all linked back to the process of migration, about the assessment, starting off understanding where you are, where you want to get to, and what you want to bring over to Qlik Cloud. And then we'll talk about programmatic deployment. So this is actually, scripted, trying to get things working at a bit more of an efficient scale and rate of migration. So there's obviously scripts and tools available both on the developer portal and Cloud Migration Center, but also through professional services with Qlik, ourselves, and Climber. But the programmatic deployment, you'd want to include all of your private content. And that's what I mentioned in the previous slide around your personal sheets, stories, and bookmarks. We've got a new API endpoint which allows for object ownership changes. So if you are hitting that kind of stumbling block where you want to make sure all your bookmarks get sent back to the users, you can now change the ownership of those bookmarks back to the user through impersonation and giving the user exactly what they saw in Client-Managed. So touching on APIs, we've got a whole powerful set of REST APIs in Qlik Cloud. Things that are specifically to do with users to add, to delete, or even update some of the information, the metadata. That's managing groups as well as possible, licenses, and DCAS. I've put that there. It's quite interesting. It's essentially, data connection as a service. We're able to create a data connection against a data source, build that out, and then do it through a programmatic way through Qlik Cloud APIs. Using these powerful REST APIs, there's a bunch of tutorials available on Qlik Developer. There's Qlik.dev. The skills needed is really PowerShell using Qlik CLI. You want to install Qlik CLI, get it working, create your context, connect to your cloud tenant, and then you'll be able to interrogate and use the REST API endpoints to do some of these activities. And what maybe isn't a tool in and of itself, but is absolutely powerful for your migration to cloud, is Data Gateway. Again, Mark will kind of go through in a bit more detail, but direct access specifically to access your on-prem data source. There's a sort of variety of supported databases that we have that's available, published on Qlik Help. But this will really help in you gaining a picture of, okay, what do we want to move to cloud? How can we migrate that using all of the APIs and endpoints that we have available, and then also connection to your data, which obviously is so important for your analytics and your dashboards. So the end-to-end cloud migration tools, again, available through professional services, both Climber and Qlik professional services. Please do get in touch. And what that would look like is really a kind of governed project management using advanced best practices, using tooling, using the frameworks where we use all of the endpoints that are available there, but we do it in more of an end-to-end holistic solution for you. And a recap on the useful resources: Qlik Developer Portal, Qlik.dev, that's where the documentation is on the APIs themselves, along with tutorials, and then the Qlik Cloud Migration Center, which again has the SaaS readiness app, which you're more than welcome to download and install and run on your client-managed environment, and trying to get some of that information up. Next slide, Raj. So some key takeaways. What Raj provided you was a great overview. We saw, Chris spoke about the reasons why moving to cloud, strategy, the strategic decision, stakeholder buy-in, making it a real project. That's really what I want to present here. Is migrating to cloud gives you so many more opportunities and to advance your analytics. That previous slide I talked about with application automation, AutoML, the different ways you can develop applications. It's all there ready for you to take the kind of stress away managing your infrastructure. Of course, there's ROI returns and everything else, but also around the functionality and features that you get that are capable in cloud. So think about that, get the stakeholder buy-in, communicate that change, give it a name. I often see with cloud migration projects, what we've delivered successfully in the past here, that giving it a name, giving it something to kind of live and breathe on, gives it that legacy as well for successful kind of communication out there. And fully test. So specifically the data layer, we see migration is can be down to the row counts, where we want to make sure that the data is the same as the foundation upon your analytics and your front-end dashboards. Conduct that reconciliation, get that sign-off and approval from the people that need to be involved before you start migrating the front end, so you're confident in knowing that that data layer is secure and accurate. And then identify cloud champions. I see this, with any sort of change initiative or program or transition inside of organizations. Your super developers in Qlik for Qlik Sense or Qlik View, those are the ones that you need to rely on. There's business logic that we're migrating up across. There's the data itself that we want to make sure is correct and accurate, and you just want to validate and verify that the migration is working in its own track. And again, tooling can automate some migration, but there's still so much more important activities before that. So again, start with that assessment. You want to have a clear picture of what you want to migrate, what doesn't have to be migrated, what needs to be slightly redesigned. and think of it as an opportunity for yourselves as well to just improve. You want to take this chance to take stock, improve the analytics that you got at the moment. If there's really dog slow running applications out there, you can then have this opportunity to make it run better, make it run easier to manage and maintain as well, while you move to cloud. And determine your business priority. I think that's also the last point, is it will help with your communication plan, help with getting your users involved for any testing commitments. Business priority, understanding which applications that you want to move across and when, and hopefully that will be all helpful for a successful migration. And now I'll leave you, transition you over to Mark for data integration.
Thank you, Sav. So yeah, I'm moving on to the data integration piece and then the connectivity, data connectivity. And in the early days of Qlik Cloud, this was often a sort of stumbling block and a key question of how users can actually access their on-premise data primarily through Qlik Cloud and ensure that the data still remains behind their private firewalls and secure. And now to address that, there's actually two options from a Qlik Cloud perspective to actually access on-premise data sources and indeed actually cloud data sources. The first of which is the direct access data gateway. This is primarily Windows based, and it uses actually Qlik Cloud through the data load editor or the data manager. And as you go through the data manager or the data load editor, you'll effectively see a whole raft of connectors available to you. And those that support direct query have effectively direct query in brackets. So for example, Salesforce or SQL Server have a direct query alternative to be able to allow that. The other option is in my side of the Qlik business with Data Movement Gateway. This is an alternative actually running on Linux, and this uses the CDC approach, so change data capture approach. Effectively, it's the technology that Qlik acquired through Attunity around 4 to 5 years ago. And the basic premise of that is that it would capture any changes that happens in your source systems, your source relational databases, changes insofar as inserts or updates or deletion of records, and those changes, those transactions are then replicated in near real time into your chosen target. So there's two ways there of actually addressing this, and we'll go into this in detail. So Roger, if you can go to the next slide, please. The first of which, as we say, is the direct access gateway. Just to talk through this slide, on the right-hand side of the screen, we see Qlik Cloud using the data gateway service, primarily running an app through Qlik Cloud using the connector service. And this then interacts with the data gateway, the direct access data gateway, effectively a small application, a Windows service running on a Windows server, connecting to the relevant connectors. And those connectors interact with the gateway manager that interacts with the different databases, and it will pull the data that's required for within the Qlik Cloud app, and effectively provide a SQL query that will be executed within the Qlik Cloud app. So the advantage, as the name suggests, is it provides direct access at the point of execution to the data that the user and the app is requiring from those data sources. Again, the advantage here is it all resides behind the firewall, so it's completely secure within your environment. The next option then, Roger, if you move to the next slide, please. An alternative is the data movement gateway. As I mentioned before, this is a Linux-based gateway, and the difference here is that this is capturing any changes to your source databases. Those changes are then either pushed into one of two directions. The top direction is to be landed in a QED file. The only bit that's not mentioned in this graphic is it requires an Amazon S3 bucket, effectively as a staging area that Qlik Cloud will interact with to effectively merge the load and the changes at the given time and store that into a complete file in QED format. The bottom half then is where the data is going, not even actually going through Qlik Cloud, it's going directly from the data movement gateway into your cloud platform of choice. Be that Snowflake, be that Google BigQuery, be that Synapse, Amazon Redshift, whatever that may be. This is actually then just using the data movement gateway to replicate and land the data into your chosen target. One more point to mention on this is the top route, the Qlik route, where to provide QBDs. That's your free taster, as I like to call it, effectively to create QBDs that's free of charge. The bottom route then, because it relies on the transformation capability of Qlik Cloud Data Integration, is a paid chargeable service, which is based upon the amount of data that you're using and transforming. So that's the two approaches there for us to consider actually how we can use on-premise and cloud-based data sources in your Qlik Cloud deployment. And with that, I'll move it to the next slide, please, Roger. And this is my final plug here for our session on the 6th of March in London. Hopefully we'll have a good day here, and we're going to talk around, I'm going to talk around the offering of Qlik Cloud Data Integration, data replication, the automated data warehousing solution, and then a colleague from Qlik in the Talend organization is going to talk around data quality and data governance. So if you are interested in seeing more QCDI in action and in more detail, I would strongly recommend you go onto the Climate.bio website to register. And with that, I will hand over to Roger for his wrap up and conclusion.
Okay, cheers, Mark. That was very informative. Do try and attend that session with Mark. You go into a great deal of detail around the QCDI type capabilities, and it really comes back to this strategy and planning conversation that we started with, which is really understanding what you want to try and achieve. What is your goal? And if it's purely a lift and shift, then carry on with direct access type querying as you're doing on premise. But if you want to start to refactor some of your integrations where you're making use of that CDC technology, because that limits loading, database loading on your on-premise database servers, then really start thinking through what impact that has on your data ingestion, and then the transformations that go on beyond that. Whether you do that within Qlik scripting or do that within QCDI, that all becomes available to you, and sort of gives you the opportunity to rethink your back-end data processes. So Sav made it very clear as well. It's established this plan, this clear identity to an activity, get some wow around it, get some excitement around it, to engage with the business and with technical team members, and get them joining, communicating, and driving forward, because a migration is rarely a big bang. It takes time, it takes effort. It goes through probably a series of projects within a program, that could be a change to your operational processes within the business, as well as a software change in terms of the way in which you bring the data in. So do think through the bigger picture and try and get the maximum you can get out of any form of migration. So that concludes everything we planned to cover. We've somewhat run over time, so do apologize if you've had a tight schedule, but we are very open to any questions and you may want to have answered.
Thanks, Rog. Thanks everyone for that. Mark, there is a question in the question panel. Hopefully you've spotted that one regarding Talend.
Yeah, I hopefully have answered it. Shall I briefly mention it now? So this will actually be covered in more detail in our session on the 6th of March, but fundamentally there are going to be merging between the offerings of Talend and Qlik Cloud Data Integration. I think it's fair to say, and you would have seen it through Qlik announcements, that a lot of their sort of pipeline designer from Talend, that will be merged into the transform module of Qlik Cloud Data Integration. So it will be a very much drag and drop interface to transform data in a similar fashion to what you would have done with Talend Cloud. So yeah, more to come on that on our webinar, on our event on the 6th of March. But feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I actually do publicise a lot of the changes from QCDI as we go through. So yeah, happy to connect with you if you're interested.
Thank you for that one. We've got one more, and I think, Sav, this one's directed to you, really. So how many apps can we migrate using the APIs?
Yeah, great question. So any number. I mean, what you'd want to do actually is, it's not the right question. You actually want to do is how many do we want to do at one point? And that's more for management, better tracking of the success of that, and then testing. So batch up your number of apps, 50 to 100 at a time. But yeah, it's unlimited. You just want to make sure that it's performant, and then if there's any issues, you can backtrack them quite easily. So I'd go with that answer.
Fantastic, thanks, Sam. Well, I think we are out of time. We are seriously over the 40 minutes that we suggested. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. There will be a survey. It's only, I think, 4 or 5 questions, but we'd really appreciate a response on that survey. That just enables us to improve these webinars, the content that we present, and generally get your feedback. So thank you, everybody. If there's any other questions, do feel free to put them in the Q&A panel, and we will come back to you. It's got your names against them, so we can easily do that. But yeah, once again, thanks for joining. A special thanks to Chris from for On Track sharing his experience, and Sam from Qlik as well. So thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.